She was 7 months pregnant, standing in the driveway of the house she designed with her own hands, and she could not get inside because her husband had changed the locks. And through the kitchen window, she could see the other woman sitting at her table, drinking coffee from the mug her 4-year-old daughter made for Mother's Day. The woman looked up, saw her, smiled, and waved goodbye. That was the moment Clara Weston stopped crying and started planning. Because 3 weeks later, she walked into the biggest social event of the year, 7 months pregnant, wearing black, carrying a single folder. Her husband was on stage, giving a speech about community and integrity, with his blonde mistress beside him in a white dress, introducing herself as Mrs. Weston. Clara smiled. And what she did next silenced 300 people and destroyed a $200 million empire in under 5 minutes. But here is what nobody expected. The real betrayal was not the affair. It was not the girlfriend. It was not even the money he stole. It was the person she trusted most after her husband, who put the knife in deepest. This story will make you angry. It will make you cry. And by the end, it will remind you of something you might have forgotten. You cannot build your life on someone else's promises, but you can build on your own strength. And that structure, the one you build after everything falls apart, is the one that stands forever. If you have ever been the woman standing outside her own house, watching someone else live her life, this story is for you. Stay with me. You are going to want to hear every word. If this story speaks to you, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because stories like this one do not come around every day. Drop a comment and tell me, what would you have done in Clara's shoes? And if you know a woman who needs to hear this tonight, share it with her. Sometimes the right story at the right time can change everything. The chandeliers of the Charlotte Country Club cast fractured light across 300 faces turned toward the grand entrance. Grant Weston stood at the center of the ballroom, his arm draped around a blonde woman half the room had never seen before. She wore white, deliberately bridal, and when people approached, she extended her hand and said 2 words that made the air leave the room. Tiffany Weston. She said it like she owned it, like she had earned it, like the name had always belonged to her. Grant smiled beside her, that effortless, magazine cover smile that had charmed clients and investors and an entire city into believing he was something more than what he actually was. His mother Ruth stood nearby, beaming, facilitating introductions as if this were a coronation rather than a crime scene. The string quartet played, champagne flowed. Charlotte society smiled and nodded and accepted the beautiful lie, because beautiful lies are so much easier to swallow than ugly truths. Then the music stopped, not gradually, not politely. It died mid-note as every head in the ballroom turned toward the entrance, where a figure stood silhouetted against the corridor light. She was 7 months pregnant. She wore black, simple, and architectural, the kind of dress that required no ornamentation because the woman wearing it was statement enough. No jewelry, except a wedding ring on her left hand, the original one, the real one. She carried a single folder under her arm. Clara Weston descended the 3 steps into the ballroom with the unhurried grace of someone who had nothing left to lose and everything to reclaim. Her eyes swept the room, found Grant, found Tiffany in her stolen white dress, found Ruth with her frozen smile, and Clara did something no one expected. She smiled. Not a broken smile, not a bitter smile. A loaded weapon of a smile. "I am sorry to interrupt," Clara said, her voice carrying across the silent room with perfect clarity. "But I believe there has been a misunderstanding about who Mrs. Weston is." 300 people held their breath, but we are getting ahead of ourselves. Because What happened in those 3 weeks before this moment, what this pregnant woman endured, and what she did about it, that is the real story. And it begins on a Tuesday morning in October in the kitchen of a beautiful house that Clara Weston designed with her own hands in a life she thought was perfect. She was wrong about the life, but she was right about the house. And in the end, that would make all the difference. 3 weeks earlier. The morning Clara Weston's world shattered started like every other morning that fall. She woke at 6:15, padded downstairs in bare feet, and began the routine that had defined her life for the past 4 years. Coffee brewing, Lily's lunch packed, cartoon channel cued on the tablet for when her daughter wandered down, still sleepy and clutching her stuffed elephant. The kitchen was Clara's favorite room in the house because Clara had designed every inch of it. Before she married Grant, before she gave up her career, before she became the woman who packed lunches and attended PTA meetings and slowly, quietly disappeared into the role of supportive wife, Clara Weston had been an interior designer, a good one, the kind of designer whose clients waited 6 months for a consultation because her eye was that sharp, her instinct that sure. She had designed this house from the foundation up, every color, every texture, every carefully considered sight line. The open kitchen with its marble island, the living room where afternoon light fell in golden rectangles across the hardwood floors, the nursery upstairs, freshly painted sage green for the baby coming in 2 months. Grant called it our dream house in interviews, at dinner parties, whenever a client complimented the space, our vision, our design, the plural possessive that erased her singular achievement. Clara had stopped correcting him years ago. It was easier, and ease had become her primary currency, the thing she traded for peace, for stability, for the illusion that her marriage was functioning. She checked her phone while the coffee brewed. No response to the love you text she had sent Grant at 11 the previous night. He had been working late again, the 3rd time that week, the 12th time that month if she was counting, and she had stopped counting because counting meant acknowledging a pattern, and acknowledging a pattern meant asking questions she was not ready to ask. "Mommy!" Lily appeared in the kitchen doorway, 4 years old, hair tangled, elephant dragging on the floor behind her. "Can I have pancakes?" Clara smiled, the genuine smile she reserved for her daughter, the one that came from somewhere real and untouched. "You can always have pancakes." She was mixing batter when her phone buzzed. A text from her best friend Jess. "Coming over at 10, bringing cupcakes. Do not argue with me." Clara typed back a smiley face and returned to the pancakes. At 9:45, she was cleaning up breakfast when she noticed Grant's iPad on the kitchen counter. He had left it again, the 3rd time in 2 weeks. He usually kept it with him, guarded it with the casual vigilance of someone who had something to guard. She picked it up to set it on his desk in the study. That was all. She was not snooping, she was not suspicious. She was just a wife picking up after her husband the way she always did, the way she had been doing for 6 years. The screen lit up. It was still logged into his messages, a thread with a contact labeled T, followed by a red heart emoji. The most recent message had come in 20 minutes ago. Clara read it standing in her kitchen, barefoot, 7 months pregnant, pancake batter still on her fingers. "When are you going to tell the pregnant cow it is over?" That was the first message she saw. From T. The words hit her like a physical blow, somewhere between her ribs and her spine, a place she did not know could hurt until it did. Her thumb moved on its own, scrolling up through the conversation. "After the baby is born, I need the optics. Divorcing a pregnant wife looks bad." That was Grant. "I am tired of waiting. I want to sleep in my house." That was T. It is your house. She just does not know it yet. Clara's hands began to shake. Not dramatically, not the cinematic trembling of a woman in a movie. A fine internal vibration, like a building stressed beyond its tolerances, holding together through engineering, but beginning to fail. She kept scrolling. Sent you the ring comparison. Mine is bigger. There was a photo attached. A diamond ring on a woman's hand, manicured nails, a restaurant table in the background. Clara recognized the restaurant. Grant had told her it was a client dinner 3 months ago. He had come home, smelling like wine, and smiled when she asked how it went. Great clients, he had said. Really promising. Below the ring photo, more messages. Photos of a blonde woman in Clara's kitchen, sitting at Clara's island, drinking from Clara's favorite blue mug. Photos taken in Clara's bedroom. The woman posed on Clara's bed, laughing at the camera with the easy comfort of someone who had been there many times. Clara looked at the timestamp on the kitchen photo, a Wednesday in September. She had taken Lily to Donna's farm that day. Her mother had made apple pie, and they had stayed for dinner. While Clara was eating apple pie with her mother and daughter, this woman was eating takeout in Clara's kitchen with Clara's husband. She scrolled to the oldest message in the thread. 14 months ago. Not weeks. Not the recent indiscretion of a confused husband. 14 months of lies, of client dinners that were not client dinners, of late nights at the office that were late nights somewhere else, of "I love you" texts sent to Clara out of obligation while something more honest was being typed to someone else. 14 months. Her son had been conceived during those 14 months. She had designed the nursery during those 14 months. She had sat across from Grant at their anniversary dinner, the one where he gave her earrings and told her she was beautiful, and she had believed him. "Mommy?" Lily stood in the doorway, holding her elephant. Clara locked the iPad and set it down. Her hands were still shaking, but her voice came out steady, the steadiness of a woman who had learned to hold herself together for the small person who needed her to. "Yes, baby." "Why are you crying?" Clara touched her face and found it wet. She had not realized. "Mommy is fine, sweetheart. Come here." She knelt down and hugged her daughter and held on, breathing in the smell of syrup and baby shampoo, feeling the small arms wrap around her neck with perfect trust. And over Lily's shoulder, Clara stared at the iPad on the counter and felt something fundamental shift inside her, a load-bearing wall giving way, the whole structure groaning. The doorbell rang, Jess arriving with cupcakes and the aggressive optimism that defined her personality. Clara wiped her face, picked up Lily, and went to open the door. She had no idea that what she had just discovered was only the beginning, that the worst was not the affair. The worst was what came next. Jess Porter had a gift for reading rooms. She walked through Clara's front door carrying a bakery box and a tote bag, took one look at Clara's face, and set everything down on the nearest surface. What happened? It was not a question. Jess did not ask questions when something was wrong. She made statements and waited for confirmation. Clara glanced at Lily, who was arranging cupcakes on the coffee table with the focused intensity of a 4-year-old given an important task. She pulled Jess into the kitchen and handed her the iPad. Jess read the messages in silence. Her face went through a sequence of expressions that Clara would later describe as a weather system: confusion, then shock, then a thunderstorm of rage compressed into absolute stillness. Jess, set the iPad down carefully, too carefully. How long has this been going on? The messages go back 14 months. 14 months. Jess said it flat, like she was confirming a number on a receipt. And who is she? I do not know. The contact just says T with a heart emoji. Jess picked the iPad back up and scrolled with purpose. She found something Claire had missed, a tagged location on one of the photos. Tiffany Lane, VP of Marketing, Weston Development Group. She works for him, Jess said. She works for him, and she is sitting in your kitchen, calling you a cow. She looked at Clara. What are you going to do? I am going to talk to him tonight, after Lily goes to bed. No. What are you going to do right now, before he gets home? Because the woman I know does not stand in her kitchen crying. The woman I know makes a plan. Clara looked around her kitchen. Every tile, every fixture, every carefully chosen detail was hers. She had designed this house, she had built this life, and Grant had been dismantling it for 14 months while she mixed pancake batter and packed school lunches and believed the lie because believing was easier than seeing. Right now, Clara said, I am going to screenshot everything on that iPad before he realizes he left it here, and then I am going to email it all to myself. That is my girl, Jess said. Clara spent the next hour methodically documenting her husband's affair. Screenshots of every message, every photo, every location tag. She emailed them to herself, to Jess, and to a new folder she created called Insurance. She checked Grant's deleted photos and found more. Tiffany at restaurants, Tiffany at hotels, Tiffany wearing a ring that made Clara's stomach drop because it was not a casual piece of jewelry. It was an engagement ring. 3 months. He had been engaged to another woman for 3 months while married to Clara. She placed the iPad exactly where Grant had left it, screen locked, angled the same way. Then she went to the living room where Lily was watching cartoons and cupcake frosting was smeared across 3 cushions, and she sat down and held her daughter and waited for the man she had married to come home. Grant arrived at 7:15. He walked in carrying his briefcase and a takeout bag from the Thai place Clara liked, the gesture of a man performing thoughtfulness without feeling it. Hey, he said, kissing the top of her head as he passed. Sorry I'm late. Long day. Claire watched him set down the food, loosen his tie, check his phone. She watched him notice the iPad on the counter and slide it into his briefcase with a movement so practiced it was almost invisible. She watched him pour a glass of wine and ask about Lily's day as if everything were normal, as if the world had not shifted on its axis 6 hours ago. She waited until Lily was asleep. Then she came downstairs and found Grant on the couch, watching a basketball game, the picture of domestic comfort. Who is Tiffany Lane? Grant's hand stopped halfway to his wine glass. The pause lasted maybe 2 seconds, but Clara saw everything in those 2 seconds. The calculation, the assessment of how much she knew, the rapid construction of a response designed to minimize damage. She works for me. Marketing. VP, why? Clara sat down across from him. She did not sit next to him. That distance was deliberate, and they both knew it. I saw your messages, Grant. Something shifted in his face. Not guilt, not shame, something closer to irritation. The expression of a man whose carefully organized plan had been disrupted by an inconvenient variable. You went through my iPad. You left it on the counter. I picked it up to move it, and the screen was open. But that is not really the point, is it? Grant rubbed his face. The gesture was familiar. He did it during difficult client meetings, during arguments about budgets, during any conversation that required him to perform an emotion he did not actually feel. How long, Grant? Clara, 14 months? Was it 14 months, or was it longer and you just got sloppy about deleting messages 14 months ago? He stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the street where their neighbors lived their quiet lives, unaware that the Weston house was detonating from the inside. When he turned back, his face had changed. The mask was off. And what was underneath was not the charming husband, not the loving father, not the successful businessman. It was something cold and calculated and utterly without remorse. You did this to yourself, Clara. The words landed like a slap. You let yourself go. You stopped being interesting. All you talk about is Lily and paint colors and nursery themes. Tiffany actually challenges me. She is building something with me. I gave up my career for this family. Nobody asked you to. Clara felt the baby kick, a sharp, insistent movement, as if her unborn son was protesting on her behalf. I want you out of this house, she said. Grant laughed. Actually laughed. A short, ugly sound she had never heard from him before. You want me out? Clara, this house is in my name. The mortgage is in my name. The cars are in my name. You have not earned an income in 4 years. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a manila envelope. Handed it to her with the casual efficiency of a man handing over a business proposal. My lawyer filed these 2 weeks ago. Divorce petition. I am requesting primary custody of Lily based on your, let us call it, emotional instability during the pregnancy. My mother has offered to assist with childcare during the transition. Clara stared at the papers. The words blurred. Filed 2 weeks ago. He had been sitting across from her at dinner for 2 weeks, passing the salt, asking about her doctor's appointments, sleeping in their bed, while these papers existed somewhere in a lawyer's office, waiting. Your mother knew? My mother has been supportive of my decision, yes. Supportive. Ruth Weston, who Claire had driven to every medical appointment for 3 years after her hip replacement. Ruth Weston, who Claire had hosted every Christmas, whose birthday Clara never forgot, whose house Clara had redesigned for free as a gift. That Ruth Weston had known her son was cheating and had helped him plan the exit. Grant picked up his briefcase. My lawyer recommends you be out by the end of the month. We can discuss the details through our attorneys. He walked to the front door, opened it, paused, and Clara, please do not make this difficult. Think about what is best for Lily. The door closed behind him. Clara stood in the living room of the house she had designed, holding divorce papers she had not asked for. 7 months pregnant with a child whose father had just called her uninteresting. Upstairs, Lily slept in a room Clara had painted by hand, stars and moons on the ceiling, a nightlight shaped like an owl. She looked down at the papers, primary custody, emotional instability, end of the month. Then she picked up her phone and called her mother. The phone rang twice before Donna Mitchell answered, because Donna always answered. It was the one certainty Clara had left. Mama, Clara said, and her voice broke on the word, cracked right down the middle, like a foundation that had been carrying too much weight for too long. Mama, I need help, baby, what happened? And Clara told her. All of it. Standing in her beautiful kitchen, in her beautiful house, in her beautiful life that had been a lie for 14 months. When she finished, Donna was quiet for a long moment. Then her mother's voice came through the phone, steady as bedrock, warm as the farmhouse kitchen where Clara had grown up. You listen to me, Clara May. You pack a bag for you and a bag for Lily. You get in your car, and you come home. Right now. Tonight. Do you hear me? Yes, ma'am. And Clara, do not forget to bring that iPad. If it is still in the house, take it. Screenshots are good. The device is better. Clara found the iPad in Grant's study. He had forgotten it again, or perhaps he had simply stopped caring about being caught. She packed 2 bags, carried her sleeping daughter to the car, buckled her into the car seat, and drove through the Charlotte night toward her mother's farm. In the rearview mirror, the house she had designed grew smaller and smaller until it disappeared. She had built that house to last a lifetime. She just had not expected the lifetime to end on a Tuesday. Clara woke the next morning in her childhood bedroom to the sound of Lily laughing downstairs and the smell of Donna's biscuits. For 3 seconds, everything was normal. Then memory crashed in like a wave, and the weight of it pressed her back into the pillow. She reached for her phone. No messages from Grant. No apology. No explanation. No, I made a mistake. Just silence, the specific silence of someone who had said exactly what they meant and had nothing to add. She called her bank to transfer money into a separate account. A practical step. A survival step. The automated system was polite and efficient right up until it was not. I am sorry, the representative said after a long pause. The joint accounts associated with this profile have been restricted. You will need to contact the primary account holder to restore access. Restricted. Clara repeated the word like it was in a foreign language. What do you mean, restricted? It appears a hold was placed on all joint accounts yesterday evening. No transactions can be processed without authorization from the primary holder. Grant had frozen everything. Every checking account, every savings account, every credit card. He had done it the same night he walked out, probably from the car, probably while Clara was still standing in the kitchen holding his divorce papers. She checked her wallet. $43 in cash and a coffee shop loyalty card with 2 stamps. 7 months pregnant, a 4-year-old daughter, and $43. She walked downstairs on legs that felt borrowed from someone else. Donna took one look at her face and set down the spatula. He froze the accounts, Clara said. Donna did not react the way Clara expected. There was no shock, no outrage, just a slow nod. The nod of a woman who had spent 30 years as a real estate attorney and had seen every version of this story. All of them? Everything. I have $43, Mama. Donna wiped her hands on her apron, walked to the counter, and picked up her phone. She made one call, spoke for 90 seconds, and hung up. You have an appointment with Helen Caldwell at noon. She is the best family attorney in Charlotte. She owed your father a favor, and now she owes it to you. Do not worry about her retainer. I will handle it. Mama, I cannot let you. Clara May Weston. Donna's voice carried the particular authority of a Southern mother who has decided something. Your father built his business, so his children and grandchildren would be taken care of. That boy built his entire company on your daddy's initial investment and your family's name. Every client he has came through connections your father made before he passed. So yes, you can let me, because this is not charity. This is an accounting correction. Clara almost smiled. Almost. Then her phone started buzzing. The first text was from Margaret, a woman from Clara's book club. Honey, I just heard. Are you okay? Grant called David last night and said you have been having some problems with the pregnancy. We are praying for you. The second was from Patrice, a neighbor. Clara, Grant mentioned you might need some space to deal with your anxiety. Just know we are here for you. No judgment. The third was from their pastor. Clara, Grant, and Ruth came to see me this morning. They are very concerned about your mental health and the safety of the baby. I think some time apart might help you find clarity. The church counseling program is available if you need it. Clara read each message with growing horror. The pattern was unmistakable. Grant and Ruth had spent the night and morning calling every person in Clara's social circle with a carefully constructed narrative. Clara was not a betrayed wife. Clara was a woman having a pregnancy-related mental breakdown. Clara was erratic. Clara was paranoid. Clara was a danger to herself and possibly to her children. They were not defending Grant's affair. They were not even acknowledging it existed. They were rewriting reality, turning the victim into the patient, the betrayed into the broken. Her phone rang. Jess, Clara answered. Have you seen what that man is doing? Jess's voice vibrated with rage. He called my husband, told him you are having a mental health crisis, and asked him to encourage me to give you space. Give you space. As in, stop supporting you. As in, isolate you from the one person who knows the truth. What did your husband say? Jess snorted. He said, And I quote, "My wife makes her own decisions about her friendships, and your boy should probably worry about his own problems." Then he hung up. I have never loved that man more than I did in that moment. Clara exhaled something that was almost a laugh. "Clara, listen to me." Jess's voice softened. "This is not random. This is a campaign. He is cutting you off from everyone who could help you." Classic playbook. I read about this in a magazine article about coercive control, and I thought it was exaggerated. But here we are, living it. What do I do? You stop answering these texts. You do not defend yourself to people who have already decided you are crazy, and you go see that lawyer your mama found, because that man has had a head start, and we need to catch up fast. Clara hung up and looked at her daughter, who was eating biscuits at Donna's kitchen table and telling her grandmother a detailed story about a caterpillar she had seen at school. Lily was fine. Lily was happy. Lily had no idea that her father was systematically trying to take her away from her mother. That afternoon, Clara drove back to the house, not to confront Grant, not to beg or argue. She needed Lily's stuffed elephant, the one her daughter could not sleep without, and her own prenatal vitamins. Small things, essential things. She pulled into the driveway of the home she had designed, the home where she had brought Lily home from the hospital, the home where she had painted the nursery for the baby she was carrying. The front door had a new lock. Clara stood on her own porch and stared at the new brass deadbolt where the old one had been. She tried her key. It did not fit. She walked around to the back door. New lock there too. She went to the garage. The code had been changed. She stood in the driveway of her own home, locked out, and through the kitchen window, she saw movement. Tiffany Lane sat at Clara's kitchen island. She was drinking coffee from Clara's blue mug, the one Lily had picked out for Mother's Day, the one that said, "World's Best Mom," in a 4-year-old's careful handwriting. Tiffany was scrolling through her phone, relaxed, comfortable, at home. She looked up, saw Clara through the window, and she smiled, a slow, deliberate smile. Then she raised her hand and waved, a beauty queen wave, fingers wiggling, lips curled. Then she mouthed 2 words through the glass, "Bye-bye." Clara made it to her car before the breakdown hit. She sat behind the steering wheel and shook. Not crying, not yet, just shaking, her whole body vibrating with a frequency she had never experienced, the physical manifestation of a life collapsing. She was 7 months pregnant, sitting in the driveway of her own house, watching another woman drink coffee from her daughter's mug, and she could not get inside. She could not get Lily's elephant. She could not get her vitamins. She could not get anything because everything she owned was behind a locked door, and the woman who had stolen her husband was on the other side of it, waving goodbye. She called Jess. The phone rang once. "Where are you?" "I am at the house. They changed the locks." "She is in there, Jess. She is sitting in my kitchen. I am on my way. 12 minutes. Do not move." Jess arrived in 11. She pulled up behind Clara's car, got out, and opened Clara's door. She knelt on the driveway and took Clara's hands. "Okay, here's what we are going to do. We are going to your mama's house. We are going to eat something, and then we are going to destroy that man. But first breathe. Your baby needs you to breathe," Clara breathed. "And tomorrow," Jess continued, "first thing, you are opening a bank account in your name only. Even if you put $10 in it, a woman should always have an account nobody else can touch. My mama taught me that, and it is the truest thing anyone ever said to me." Clara nodded. "Now." Jess stood up and looked at the house. She saw Tiffany watching from the window. Jess stared back, held the gaze for 5 full seconds, then turned to Clara. "Also, I want you to know that I just made eye contact with that woman, and she looked away first. So we are already winning." Despite everything, Clara laughed. It was small and broken and wet, but it was a laugh. and Jess grinned like she had won a war. They drove back to Donna's farm in separate cars. Clara watched her house disappear in the rearview mirror for the second time in 24 hours. But this time, something was different. This time, underneath the shock and the humiliation and the fear, something else was growing. Something cold and focused, and absolutely without mercy. Grant Weston had taken her home. He had taken her money. He had taken her reputation. He was trying to take her daughter. He had made one mistake. He had left her alive to fight back. Helen Caldwell's office occupied the 14th floor of a glass tower downtown, the kind of address that suggested expensive results and delivered them. Helen herself was mid-50s, silver-haired, sharp-eyed, and possessed the particular calm of someone who had navigated hundreds of divorces and no longer flinched at anything. "Tell me everything," Helen said, and Clara did. When she finished, Helen was quiet for exactly 3 seconds. Then she opened a legal pad and began writing. "3 things," Helen said. "First, the account freeze is illegal. You are a co-owner of those accounts, and he cannot restrict your access without a court order. I will have that reversed by end of day tomorrow. Second, the locks. Changing the locks on a marital home to exclude a spouse is a violation of your rights of occupancy. I will file an emergency motion for re-entry. Third, and this is the one that matters." She looked up from her pad. "He filed for custody 2 weeks before telling you about the affair. That means he has been building a legal strategy while you were building a nursery. We are behind, and we need to catch up fast." "How far behind?" Helen tapped her pen on the desk. "His lawyers have had at least 2 months to prepare. They have a narrative, an unstable pregnant wife. They have supporting testimony from his mother. They have a financial structure designed to make it look like you contributed nothing to the marriage. I designed the house. I gave up my career. My father's money built his company. I know, and we are going to prove all of that. But I need you to understand something." Helen leaned forward. "This is not going to be fair. It is not going to be quick. And it is going to get worse before it gets better. Are you ready for that?" Clara put her hand on her belly, where her son was kicking against her ribs. "I am ready." Helen nodded. "Good. Now tell me about your father's investment in Weston Development." Clara's father, James Mitchell, had invested $500,000 in Grant's construction company 8 years ago. It was supposed to be a loan documented with a handshake and a verbal agreement between a father and the man his daughter loved. James died of a heart attack 3 years later, and the documentation, such as it was, died with him. Grant's lawyers were claiming it was a gift. Helen called in a forensic accountant named Mike Rawlings. Quiet, methodical, the kind of man who found stories hidden in spreadsheets, the way archaeologists found civilizations hidden in dirt. What Mike found over the next 2 weeks was not just a story. It was a crime. Grant had diverted $2.3 million from Weston Development Group into a private account over 18 months. The transfers were disguised as consulting fees, vendor payments, and equipment purchases, all routed through shell companies that existed only on paper. He had used company funds to purchase a downtown condominium. The title was in Tiffany Lane's name. 2 bedrooms, a river view, and a price tag of $420,000, all paid with money that belonged to the company and its investors. He had transferred his shares in Weston Development to a trust controlled by his mother Ruth. On paper, Grant Weston now owned nothing. In reality, he controlled everything through Ruth, who would sign whatever her son asked her to sign, and the company itself was drowning. 3 active development projects were unfunded. Subcontractors had not been paid in months. New investor money was being used to pay old investor obligations. It was not technically a Ponzi scheme, but it was close enough that the distinction was academic. He is not just cheating on you, Helen said when Mike presented his findings. He is committing financial fraud. If this becomes public, he does not just lose the divorce. He loses the company. He might lose his freedom. Clara stared at the spreadsheets, numbers she could not fully comprehend but whose implications were devastating. He built all of this on my father's money, she said quietly, and now he is stealing from his own company to pay for his girlfriend's apartment. Helen filed an emergency motion to freeze Grant's business and personal assets and restore Clara's access to the joint accounts. The hearing was scheduled for the following Tuesday. The judge, a no-nonsense veteran named Patricia Thornton, reviewed the documentation and granted the freeze within 20 minutes. Clara walked out of the courthouse into the autumn sunshine and felt something she had not felt in weeks: hope. She called Jess from the car. "We got it. The accounts are unfrozen. His assets are locked. We have evidence of fraud." Jess screamed so loud, Clara had to hold the phone away from her ear. That night, for the first time since the discovery, Clara slept through the night. She dreamed about the nursery she had painted, the sage-green walls, the white crib, the mobile of wooden birds she had ordered from a craftsman in Vermont. She dreamed it was finished, and her son was sleeping in it, safe. She woke up, believing they were going to be okay. She was wrong. The call came on a Thursday morning. Helen's voice was flat, which was worse than if she had been upset. Flat meant serious. Flat meant bad. "I need you to come to my office. Now." Clara drove to Charlotte with Lily buckled in the back seat, singing along to a children's album about farm animals. The contrast between her daughter's innocent joy and the dread building in Clara's chest was almost physically painful. Donna met her in the parking garage and took Lily to the playground across the street. Clara went up to the 14th floor alone. Helen was standing behind her desk, holding a document. "Grant's lawyers have filed a counter-motion," Helen said. "They have an affidavit from your OBGYN, Dr. Sarah Klein, stating that during your last appointment you exhibited, and I am quoting here, signs of severe prenatal anxiety and emotional dysregulation." She further states that the stress of litigation could endanger the pregnancy and recommends, again quoting, "a stable low-conflict environment for the remainder of the term." Clara sat down slowly. The chair felt like it was tilting. Sarah would not do that. She did. I confided in her. "During my last checkup, I cried and told her about the divorce. She was my doctor. I trusted her." Helen set the affidavit on the desk. Dr. Klein's husband is David Klein. He is a project manager at Weston Development Group. He reports directly to Grant. The room went quiet. Clara stared at the affidavit and felt something tear loose inside her. Not anger, not sadness, something deeper. The realization that the people she trusted were not just failing her. They were being weaponized against her. What does this mean? It means the judge has paused the asset freeze pending a psychological evaluation. Grant's lawyers are arguing that pursuing litigation is harmful to your pregnancy and that a cooling-off period is necessary. "He is using my baby against me," Clara said. "Every time I cry, every time I am scared, they will call it evidence. They are turning my pregnancy into a cage." Helen sat down across from her. Her face was the calm, steady face of someone who had seen this before and hated it every time. "Then we stop being sad," Helen said, "and we start being strategic." That same week, Ruth Weston hosted a gathering at her home. She called it a prayer circle. She invited every woman in Clara and Grant's social network, 23 women who had been to Clara's house for dinner parties, who had watched Lily grow up, who had brought casseroles when Clara's father died. It was not a prayer circle. It was a coordinated character assassination performed over coffee cake and scripture. Clara found out because one woman, Sarah Bennett, secretly recorded the meeting on her phone and sent the audio to Clara with a note. This is wrong. You deserve to know. Clara listened to the recording at Donna's kitchen table, while Lily napped upstairs. She heard Ruth's voice, the voice of the woman she had cared for through hip replacement recovery, the woman whose Christmas gifts she had wrapped every year. That girl was never good enough for my son. She trapped him with a baby, and now she is doing it again. Thank God he found someone who actually appreciates him. Clara heard murmurs of agreement. She heard women she had considered friends nodding along to the dismantling of her character. She has always been cold. Grant tried so hard. Some women just cannot balance motherhood and marriage. I always thought there was something off about her, too focused on her work. Her work. They meant the career she had given up. They meant the talent she had sacrificed. They were holding her past ambition against her while simultaneously criticizing her for not having a job. She could not win. The game was designed so she could not win. Donna listened to the recording beside her. When it ended, Donna's face had changed. The warmth was still there, underneath, but something harder had surfaced, something that reminded Clara of her father before a difficult negotiation. That woman, Donna said quietly, referring to Ruth, has made a very serious mistake. What mistake? She came after my grandbaby. Donna looked at Clara. Now I am involved. The combination of the medical affidavit and Ruth's social campaign was devastating. Clara's support network was crumbling. Her legal momentum was stalled. The evidence of Grant's fraud was sitting in a folder that no one could act on because the asset freeze had been paused. Grant called her that evening. His voice was soft, concerned, the voice of the man she had married. Clara, I have been thinking, maybe we went about this the wrong way. Maybe we can sit down, just the two of us, and figure things out. For Lily, for the baby. Clara held the phone and felt something terrifying. She felt herself wanting to believe him, wanting to go back to the lie because the lie had been comfortable, had been warm, had smelled like biscuits, and sounded like Lily, laughing in the kitchen. She almost said yes. Then Jess walked into the room, saw Clara's face, saw the phone, and understood everything in a single glance. Jess crossed the room in 3 steps, took the phone from Clara's hand, and raised it to her own ear. Are you seriously calling this woman right now? After what you did? After you changed her locks and froze her money and sent your mama to trash her to every person she knows? Boy, you better talk to your lawyer because you are not talking to her. She hung up. Clara stared at her. Jess stared back. I cannot believe, in this economy, that man has the audacity to call you crying, the same man who changed your locks. Girl, I need a minute. She fanned herself dramatically. I need a moment. Clara almost laughed. Almost. But later that night, alone in her childhood bedroom, she allowed herself to feel how close she had come to folding, how Grant's voice had almost reached the part of her that still loved him, still wanted the life they were supposed to have, still believed in the man he had pretended to be. She put her hand on her belly and felt her son move. No, she whispered, we do not go back. We go forward. The question was how. Donna Mitchell had not practiced law in 12 years, but she had never stopped thinking like a lawyer. And in the 2 weeks since Clara arrived at her farmhouse with a sleeping child and a shattered marriage, Donna had been doing something she had not told her daughter about. She had been investigating. Not the affair, not the financial fraud. Those were Helen's domain. Donna had been investigating the people. She sat Clara down at the kitchen table on a Saturday morning while Lily played in the yard and presented her findings with the methodical precision of someone delivering a closing argument. First, Donna said, Tiffany Lane. Her real name is Tiffany Bowen. She changed it 6 years ago, after her second relationship with a married man ended badly. Clara set down her coffee. Donna opened a folder. Mike Rawlings helped me with some of this. Tiffany Bowen. age 27. Before Grant, she was involved with a married gallery owner in Raleigh. Before that, a married tech executive in Atlanta. Both men left their wives. Both lost significant portions of their businesses in the divorce. Both hired Tiffany into professional roles afterward. She paused to let that settle. She is not a woman who fell in love with your husband, Donna continued. She is a woman who targets successful married men, positions herself as the sympathetic alternative, and profits from the destruction. Grant is not her partner. He is her project. Clara stared at the folder. Does Grant know? I doubt it. Men like Grant do not believe they can be manipulated because they believe they are the ones doing the manipulating. You said there was more. There is. Donna pulled out another sheet. Tiffany has been transferring money from the condo Grant bought her into an account in Wilmington. Small amounts, regular intervals. She has been doing it for 4 months. She is building an escape fund, Clara said. She is building an escape fund, Donna confirmed. From Grant. She is planning to leave him the same way he left you, probably after she has extracted everything she can from the company. Clara sat with this for a long moment. The woman who had waved at her through her own kitchen window, the woman who had drunk coffee from Lily's mug, was not just a mistress. She was a predator. And Grant, for all his scheming, for all his legal maneuvering and asset hiding and narrative construction, was prey. There was something almost funny about it. Almost. And the second thing, Clara said, you said first, which means there is a second. Donna's expression changed. This one is bigger. Bigger than a professional home wrecker. Donna slid a spreadsheet across the table. Mike found something in the company finances that goes beyond asset diversion. The $2.3 million Grant moved is not profit. It is investor money. 3 of his current projects are unfunded. He has been using deposits from new investors to cover payments on old projects. That is a Ponzi scheme. It is close enough that the difference will not matter in court, or to the investors, or to the state attorney general's office. Clara looked at the spreadsheet and saw the architecture of her husband's life for what it really was, not a building. A house of cards, elaborate, impressive from the outside, and one strong wind from total collapse. If this becomes public, Clara said. If this becomes public, Donna finished, Grant does not just lose the divorce. He loses the company. He loses his reputation. He may lose his freedom. And more importantly, every asset he is trying to hide, every dollar he is trying to keep from you, becomes evidence in a fraud investigation. Clara picked up the spreadsheet and studied it the way she used to study design plans, looking for the load-bearing elements, the stress points, the places where pressure would create maximum effect. I do not want to destroy him, she said. Donna looked at her steadily. I want Lily. I want the house. I want what belongs to me, and I want him to stop pretending I do not exist. Then we do not need to destroy him. Donna took the spreadsheet back. We just need to make sure he knows we can. Helen received the new evidence the following Monday. She spent 3 days building a revised legal strategy that she described to Clara with unusual satisfaction. We are filing a comprehensive motion. Financial fraud documentation. Tiffany Bowen's background and pattern of targeting married men. The recording of Ruth's prayer circle meeting. The connection between your OBGYN and Grant's company. And a request for emergency full custody based on Grant's demonstrated pattern of manipulation, financial abuse, and witness tampering. Can we win? Clara, we are not going to win. We are going to make it so expensive for him to fight that surrender becomes his best option. That Friday, Grant's lawyer called Helen to discuss settlement terms. Grant's tone had changed. He was no longer demanding. He was negotiating. Helen reported back to Clara. He wants to meet. He wants to talk about a reasonable resolution. For a moment, Clara felt triumph. Small, cautious, but real. Then something happened that taught her the most important lesson about people who have spent their whole lives getting what they want. They do not stop because you are winning. They stop because they are reloading. The Charlotte Country Club annual charity gala was the social event of the season. 300 guests, black tie, a silent auction supporting children's literacy programs. And this year, Weston Development Group was the featured sponsor, which meant Grant Weston would be speaking from the podium about community and generosity and building futures. The irony was so thick, you could have used it for insulation. Clara learned about the gala from Jess, who had learned about it from the club's newsletter, which featured a photo of Grant and Tiffany at a pre-event dinner. Tiffany was identified in the caption as Grant's fiancé. Fiancé. He was still married to Clara. The divorce was not finalized, and he was publicly announcing an engagement to another woman. They will be there together, Jess said. Tiffany is going to introduce herself as Tiffany Weston. Ruth will be there. Every person who believes their lies will be there. Clara said nothing for a long time. Then she said, "I am going." Jess looked at her. "Helen said you should not. Helen is protecting me legally. I need to protect myself personally. Every person in that room thinks I am the crazy pregnant woman who drove her husband away. If I hide, they win. If I disappear, the lie becomes the truth. You are 7 months pregnant. I am 7 months pregnant, and I am the strongest I have ever been." Clara put her hand on her belly. "My son is going to be born into a world where his mother stood up, not where she hid." Jess studied her for a long moment, then she grinned. "Well then, what are we wearing?" They spent the next day preparing. Not just the dress, though Clara chose carefully, simple black, elegant, nothing that screamed "look at me," but everything that whispered, "I belong here." They prepared strategically. Helen assembled a folder containing the financial documentation, the fraud evidence, the timeline, not for the gala itself, for what might come after. Donna drove in from the farm. She stood in Clara's childhood bedroom doorway and watched her daughter get dressed. "Your grandmother," Donna said, "once told me something I never forgot. When they try to bury you, remind them you are a seed. You walk into that room and you bloom, baby." Clara looked at herself in the mirror. 33 years old, 7 months pregnant, wearing a simple black dress and her original wedding ring. Not beautiful in the way magazines meant, beautiful in the way that mattered. Strong and real and still standing. She knelt down and held Lily, who was staying with Donna for the night. "Mommy has to go somewhere important tonight," Clara said. "Sometimes when people say things about you that are not true, you do not fight with words. You just show up and be yourself. That is the bravest thing anyone can do. Like when Tommy said, 'I could not climb the monkey bars, and then I climbed them.' Exactly like that. And then I climbed them again just to make sure he saw," Clara laughed. "Yes, exactly like that." She kissed her daughter, hugged her mother, and walked out to the car where Jess was waiting behind the wheel. Jess had appointed herself driver, bodyguard, and moral support for the evening. She wore a red dress and an expression that suggested she was looking forward to this more than any event in recent memory. "Ready?" Jess asked. Clara buckled her seatbelt. "Ready." They drove toward Charlotte in the October darkness, the city lights growing brighter as they approached. Clara's phone buzzed. A text from Helen. "Whatever happens tonight, do not lose your composure. They want you to react. Be the calm in the room. Be the person everyone remembers as steady." Clara typed back, "I understand." Another text, this one from Donna. "Give them hell, baby." Politely. Clara smiled and put her phone away. The country club appeared ahead, lit up like a lantern. Cars lined up at the valet stand, couples in evening wear ascending the front steps. Clara took one breath, then another. Then she opened the car door and stepped out into the night. The ballroom of the Charlotte Country Club smelled like lilies and money. 300 guests moved through the space in evening wear, champagne glasses catching light, conversations rising and falling in the practiced rhythms of people who attended these events regularly enough to find them both essential and boring. Grant and Tiffany had arrived first. Clara saw them immediately, positioned near the center of the room like they had been staged there. Tiffany wore white. Of course she wore white. A dress that was not quite bridal, but close enough to make the implication impossible to miss. She was introducing herself to people Clara had known for years, extending her hand, smiling that practiced smile. "Tiffany Weston," she said to each new face. "So lovely to meet you." Ruth stood nearby, beaming, facilitating. The proud mother-in-law of a woman who was not legally her daughter-in-law and might never be. Grant looked exactly as he always looked. Polished, charming, comfortable. The kind of man who made rooms feel smaller because he took up so much space in them. He was laughing at something a city councilman said, his hand resting on Tiffany's lower back with proprietary ease. Then the string quartet paused between pieces, and Clara walked in. She did not rush. She did not hesitate. She descended the 3 steps into the ballroom with the measured confidence of a woman who had rehearsed this moment only in the sense that her entire life had been rehearsal for it. She wore black. Simple. No jewelry except the ring. Her pregnancy was visible and unapologetic. She carried nothing but a small clutch and the absolute certainty of someone who had been to the bottom and found it surprisingly solid. The room noticed. Of course it noticed. Whispers cascaded through the crowd like wind through tall grass. "Is that Clara Weston? I thought she was not coming." "Oh my God! Look at Grant's face." Grant's face was worth looking at. The color drained from it in real time, a visible tide of shock pulling everything human out of his expression and leaving behind something rigid and afraid. Tiffany grabbed his arm. Ruth's smile fossilized. Clara did not go to them. This was important. She went to the bar, ordered sparkling water, and turned to survey the room with the calm appraisal of someone deciding where to hang a painting. Then she did the most devastating thing possible. She started having fun. She found people she knew and talked to them. Not about Grant, not about the divorce, about their children, their work, their lives. She asked questions and listened to answers and laughed when things were funny. She was warm and present and entirely herself. The Clara that existed before Grant, the Clara that existed underneath the roles of wife and mother, and supporting character in someone else's story. People approached her, cautiously at first, then with genuine warmth, because Clara without Grant was someone they had not seen in years. She was funny. She was interesting. She was the kind of person you wanted to stand next to at a party. An older woman, a retired family attorney named Barbara Cross, approached Clara near the silent auction table. "Honey, I watched you walk in here tonight," Barbara said. "And I want you to know something. I have seen 100 women go through what you are going through. The ones who survive are not the ones who fight the hardest. They are the ones who know their worth and refuse to negotiate it. Whatever he is offering, do not settle. Your children are watching." Clara thanked her and meant it. Across the room, Tiffany was watching Clara with the particular intensity of someone whose plan was not going according to script. Clara was supposed to be absent. Clara was supposed to be hiding. Clara was supposed to be the sad, crazy, discarded wife, not this composed, glowing, magnetic woman who was systematically reclaiming every room she entered. Tiffany could not take it. She intercepted Clara near the restrooms, positioning herself in the hallway like a checkpoint. "You have a lot of nerve showing up here," Tiffany said. Her voice was sharp, but controlled. A woman performing authority she did not actually possess. Clara looked at her steadily. "This is a charity gala. I bought these tickets 6 months ago, but I understand why you might think you can decide who belongs where. You have been deciding that in my house for a while now. It is not your house anymore." "You are right," Clara said. "It is a house purchased with stolen company funds that are currently under federal review. So technically, it is not yours either." Tiffany's composure cracked, just slightly, a fracture line across the performance. "But you already knew that, did you not, Tiffany? Or should I call you Tiffany Bowen?" The blood left Tiffany's face so fast it was almost audible. "I know about the other marriages," Clara continued. She kept her voice even, conversational, as if they were discussing the weather. "I know about the gallery owner in Raleigh, the tech executive in Atlanta. Both married, both destroyed, both hired you afterward. It is quite a pattern. You do not know what you are talking about. I also know about the account in Wilmington, the one you have been filling with money from the condo Grant bought you. Your escape fund. Does he know you are planning to leave him the same way he left me?" Tiffany stood frozen. Her champagne glass trembled in her hand. "Here is some free advice," Clara said. "And this is the last kind thing I will ever do for you. Get your own lawyer. Not Grant's lawyer, your lawyer. Because when his company collapses, and it will, you do not want to be standing next to him." Ooh. Clara walked away. Behind her, she heard Tiffany's champagne glass hit the carpet. Grant found Clara 10 minutes later near the silent auction. His jaw was tight. His charming mask was slipping. "What are you doing here?" he hissed. "Supporting charity? What are you doing, besides committing financial fraud and introducing your mistress to our friends? You need to stop this. You are embarrassing yourself." "I am embarrassing you," Clara said. "There is a difference, and you should get used to it." She walked away from him and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no pain, just the cool clarity of a woman who had finally stopped performing the role he had written for her. The gala's MC took the podium to begin the charity presentation. As the featured sponsor, Grant was scheduled to speak. He climbed the steps to the stage, adjusted the microphone, and began his rehearsed remarks about community and responsibility and investing in the future. He was 3 sentences in when Helen Caldwell approached the event organizer and handed over a note. The MC interrupted Grant mid-sentence. "I apologize, Mr. Weston. The committee has just been made aware of something that requires attention." Helen took the microphone. She did not raise her voice. She did not grandstand. She spoke with the measured precision of a woman who understood that the quieter you spoke, the harder people listened. "I apologize for the interruption. My name is Helen Caldwell, and I represent Clara Weston. I am not here to create a scene, but since this is a charity event supporting families in need, the committee should be aware that Weston Development Group, tonight's featured sponsor, is currently under investigation for financial misconduct, including misuse of investor funds that may affect several people in this room." She placed a folder on the podium. "This documentation has been provided to the appropriate authorities. I trust the committee will want to review it before the company's name appears on additional materials." 300 people, in perfect silence. Grant stood on stage, mouth open, the polished mask finally shattered. Ruth rushed forward. "This is a lie. This is that woman's revenge." And then Donna Mitchell stood up from her table in the back of the room. She was 61 years old and 5'4", and she had the voice of a woman who had argued cases in front of the North Carolina Supreme Court. "Ruth, sit down." The room went completely still. Every number in that folder is documented and verified, Donna's voice carried with perfect clarity. Your son built his company on my late husband's investment. He cheated on my daughter. He locked her out of her own home. While 7 months pregnant, he tried to take her children, and he stole from his own investors to pay for his girlfriend's apartment. Donna paused. Let her gaze sweep the room. This is not revenge. This is an audit. The silence that followed was absolute. Then it broke. Voices everywhere. Grant was escorted off the stage by the event organizer. Tiffany was already moving toward the exit, not with Grant, away from him. Self-preservation, the one consistent trait in her pattern. Ruth stood alone in the middle of the ballroom, surrounded by women who had sat in her living room a week ago and nodded along to her lies. Women who were now looking at her with something between shock and shame. Jess watched the entire thing from the bar. She turned to the bartender and raised her champagne glass. I would like another glass, please, she said. This is the best Tuesday I have ever had. The fallout was swift and total. Within 48 hours of the gala, 3 of Grant's largest investors filed civil suits against Weston Development Group. The state attorney general's office opened a preliminary inquiry into the company's financial practices. 2 active construction projects were halted. Subcontractors who had been waiting months for payment began filing liens. Grant's lawyer called Helen to request an emergency settlement conference. His tone had changed entirely. The arrogance was gone. What remained was the particular desperation of a man who had just realized that the walls he built were closing in on him. Tiffany Lane, or rather Tiffany Bowen, disappeared from Charlotte within a week. Her downtown condo was emptied in a single afternoon. Her Wilmington account was frozen as part of the fraud investigation, but she had apparently planned for this contingency because she vanished so thoroughly that even Mike Rawlings could not immediately locate her. She left Grant a note. Clara never learned what it said, but Grant's behavior afterward suggested it was not kind. The woman he had destroyed his marriage for, the woman he had called challenging and interesting and worthy of his attention, had done exactly what Clara's mother predicted. She had extracted what she could and moved on to the next target. Grant was left with the wreckage. Ruth's prayer circle dissolved. The recording Sarah Bennett had made circulated through their social network with the unstoppable momentum of truth in a community built on appearances. Women who had nodded along to Ruth's character assassination now distanced themselves with the speed of people who had just realized they were standing too close to a fire. Dr. Sarah Klein's involvement was reported to the state medical board by Helen. The ethics review was pending, but Dr. Klein had already lost several patients who learned that their doctor had weaponized a vulnerable woman's confession for the benefit of her husband's employer. And through all of it, Clara waited. She waited at Donna's farmhouse with Lily and her growing belly, and the patience of a woman who understood that the most important structures are not built quickly. She reviewed documents Helen sent. She answered questions from Mike Rawlings. She ate her mother's cooking and played with her daughter and felt, for the first time in months, something that was not quite happiness, but was in the same family. Peace, maybe, or the beginning of it. The custody hearing was scheduled for a Wednesday in November. Judge Patricia Thornton's courtroom was smaller than Clara expected, institutional and fluorescent, the kind of room where lives were decided under bad lighting. Grant arrived with his remaining lawyer. He had lost weight. His suit did not fit right. The charming mask was gone entirely now, and what remained was a man who looked like he had not slept in weeks, which, Clara thought, he probably had not. Ruth was there too, in the front row. She wore her church face, serene and righteous, but her eyes moved constantly, scanning the room for threats. Helen presented the case with surgical precision. The financial evidence, the fraudulent asset transfers, the lockout of a pregnant spouse, the coordination with Ruth to destroy Clara's social support network, the weaponization of a medical professional's confidential relationship, the introduction of a mistress with a documented pattern of targeting married men. She laid it out not as a story of a wronged wife, but as a pattern of calculated abuse, each fact connected to the next, each piece of evidence supporting a single conclusion. Grant Weston had not simply had an affair. He had conducted a systematic campaign to erase his wife from her own life. Grant's lawyer attempted to counter. He presented Grant as a man who had made mistakes but loved his daughter, a man who was willing to change, a man who deserved a second chance. Judge Thornton listened to both sides. Then she removed her reading glasses and looked directly at Grant. "Mr. Weston," she said, "this court has reviewed the evidence extensively, and I want to be very clear about what I have seen. I have seen a man who filed for divorce while his pregnant wife was designing a nursery for their unborn child. I have seen a man who froze his wife's access to marital funds, leaving her with $43 and a 4-year-old daughter. I have seen a man who changed the locks on the family home and allowed his mistress to occupy it. I have seen a man who coordinated with his mother to systematically poison his wife's social relationships. And I have seen a man who arranged for his wife's doctor to violate patient confidentiality to support his custody claim." She paused. "You did not simply break your marriage vows, Mr. Weston. You tried to erase your wife. You tried to make her disappear. And when she refused to disappear, you tried to have her declared unfit." The courtroom was silent. This court awards full custody of the minor child Lily Weston to her mother, Clara Weston. Mr. Weston is granted supervised visitation, the terms of which will be determined by this court following a complete psychological evaluation of the father. The marital home is returned to Mrs. Weston immediately, and Mr. Weston is ordered to pay temporary spousal support effective today. Judge Thornton looked at Grant one more time. "I have been on this bench for 22 years, Mr. Weston. I have seen many things. Your conduct toward your pregnant wife represents one of the most calculated acts of cruelty I have encountered in this courtroom. I strongly suggest you use the time before your next hearing to reflect on what kind of father, what kind of man you want to be." She struck the gavel. Clara walked out of the courthouse into the November air. Donna was on her left, Jess was on her right, Lily was at school, safe, unaware that a judge had just decided her future in a fluorescent room on a Wednesday afternoon. The three women stood on the courthouse steps and breathed. "So?" Jess said finally. "Can I say his name now?" Clara looked at her. "His name? You know, that man. Does he get his name back?" Clara considered this for a moment. "No," she said. "He is still that man." "Forever," Jess nodded. "Good, because that man is a lot more than he deserves." Donna put her arm around her daughter. "Let us go get your little girl from school, and then let us go home. Home. Clara's house. The house she designed. The house that was hers again." They drove to the elementary school, and Clara walked in and signed Lily out and carried her to the car, even though Lily was really too big to carry, and Clara was really too pregnant to be carrying her. But some moments require physical closeness, regardless of logistics. "Mama, why are you squeezing me so hard?" "Because I love you. I love you too. Can we get ice cream?" "We can always get ice cream." They drove to the house, Clara's house. She stood in the driveway and looked at the front door, where the locks had been changed and then changed back, and felt something she could not name immediately. Later, she would call it reclamation. The act of returning to a place that was always yours, even when someone tried to tell you it was not. She carried Lily inside. The house smelled stale. Tiffany's traces were everywhere: a coffee mug in the sink, a sweater thrown over a chair, a lipstick-stained wine glass on the counter, evidence of an occupation that had ended. Clara walked through every room, touched every wall, opened every window to let the autumn air in and the stale pretense out. Then she went to the nursery, the sage-green walls, the white crib, the mobile of wooden birds. No one had touched this room. It was exactly as she had left it, her last act of creation before the world fell apart. She stood in the doorway and put her hand on her belly and felt her son kick. "We are home," she said. 1 year later, Clara Weston sat at her dining room table, surrounded by fabric samples, color charts, and architectural drawings. Her laptop was open to 3 browser tabs. Her phone displayed 14 unread messages from clients. A half-eaten sandwich occupied a precarious position on top of a stack of invoices. From the living room, she could hear Lily, now 5, explaining the rules of an elaborate game to her 11-month-old brother James, who was sitting in his bouncer and watching his sister with the wide-eyed fascination of a baby who had just discovered that the world contained people more entertaining than ceiling fans. "No, James," Lily said, with patient authority. "The purple dinosaur goes there. You are not doing it right." James shrieked with delight and threw a block across the room. "Close enough," Lily said. Clara smiled and returned to her work. 6 months ago, she had relaunched her interior design business from this very table. What started as a single project, redesigning a friend's kitchen, had grown into something she had not anticipated. Word spread. Clients appeared. Her work, which had always been excellent, now carried the additional weight of a woman who understood what it meant to build something from nothing. She had 6 employees now, a small office downtown, a client list that included restaurants, boutique hotels, and private homes across Charlotte. And next month, she was beginning her most significant commission yet. The Charlotte Country Club had hired her to redesign their ballroom, the same ballroom where she had made her entrance 11 months ago, the same room where Grant's empire had come apart at the seams, the same space where she had reclaimed her name. The irony was not lost on her, but she had stopped dwelling on irony months ago. Irony was backward-looking. Clara was building forward. Grant's trial was scheduled for March. The fraud charges were serious. His company was gone, dissolved, its assets frozen, its projects abandoned at various stages of incompletion. Investors had lost millions. Subcontractors had gone unpaid. The charming face that had sold an empire had become the face of its collapse. He had supervised visitation with Lily every other Saturday. He arrived on time and returned her on time, and said very little to Clara. Whatever he was feeling, guilt, resentment, the slow dawning of consequence, he kept it behind the careful blankness of a man who had been advised by his lawyer to say nothing that could be used against him. Lily loved her father. Clara allowed this love, even protected it, because children should not be punished for the failures of their parents. Whatever Grant had done to Clara, Lily's relationship with her father was Lily's to navigate. Clara would be there to help, but she would not be there to poison. This was harder than it sounded. Some days it was the hardest thing she did. Ruth Weston had not spoken to Clara since the courthouse. She had not met baby James. She had attended 3 of Lily's Saturday visits and spent them in the car, unable or unwilling to face the daughter-in-law she had tried to destroy. Clara did not reach out. Some bridges burned so completely that even the foundations are gone. Tiffany Bowen, last Clara heard, had surfaced in Savannah. A new city, a new name probably, a new married man, certainly. Clara felt nothing about this. Not anger, not pity, just the neutral recognition that some people are weather patterns. They blow through, cause damage, and move on. Jess came over every Wednesday evening. She called it Wine and Wine Wednesday, a tradition she had invented and refused to abandon even after Clara pointed out that she was still breastfeeding and could not drink wine. Clara drank grape juice and pretended. Donna visited every Sunday. She brought food, opinions, and the particular brand of maternal interference that Clara had once found overbearing and now understood was simply love, expressing itself through casseroles and unsolicited advice. "You need to repaint the guest room," Donna said during her most recent visit, studying the walls with a critical eye. "This color makes it look like a hospital. Mama, I am an interior designer. I chose that color deliberately." "Deliberately wrong, maybe," Donna sniffed. "Your father would have called it institutional." Clara laughed because her mother was right. The color was terrible. She had chosen it during a week when nothing felt right, and the walls of her life were still unstable, and she had picked the first swatch that did not make her cry. She would repaint it. Eventually. That evening, after Lily was in bed and James was sleeping in the nursery, his nursery, the one with sage green walls and a mobile of wooden birds, Clara sat at her drafting table and worked on the country club redesign. The plans were ambitious. New lighting, new layout, new everything. She was transforming the space from a ballroom that whispered old money and quiet judgment into something warmer, more open, more honest. A room that did not need pretense to be beautiful. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, expecting a client email. It was not a client email. It was a message from an address she did not recognize. The subject line was simple. "You should know what your ex-husband is planning." Clara opened it. It was a forwarded email chain. Grant and an attorney in Raleigh. The content made her blood go cold. Grant was petitioning to modify the custody agreement. He was claiming rehabilitation, changed circumstances, a commitment to being a better father. He had a new girlfriend, a family therapist named Karen Holloway, who had written a letter supporting his fitness as a parent. Clara read the letter. It was professional, persuasive, and designed specifically to counter every point Judge Thornton had raised. But that was not the worst part. At the bottom of the email chain, a message from Ruth to Grant. "Do not worry, sweetheart. I found a judge in Mecklenburg County who owes me a favor. We will get Lily back. That woman does not get to win forever." Clara read it twice, then a third time. She stood up and walked to the window. Charlotte spread out below her, lights glittering in the darkness. The city she had helped shape, one redesigned room at a time. The city where she had lost everything and then rebuilt it, stronger from the foundation up. She was not afraid. A year ago, she had been standing in a driveway with $43 and a broken heart, watching another woman wave goodbye through her own kitchen window. A year ago, she had not known who she was without Grant Weston. Now she knew. She was Clara Mae Weston, mother of two, designer of spaces that people walked into and felt, for the first time, at home, daughter of Donna and James Mitchell, best friend of the loudest, most loyal woman in North Carolina. A woman who had been buried and came back as a seed, just like her grandmother said. She picked up the phone and made one call. "Mama, it is me. They are coming again." Donna's voice came through the phone, steady as the farmhouse foundation, warm as a kitchen full of biscuits, and underneath it all, steel. "Good. This time, we will be ready." Clara hung up. She checked the baby monitor. James was sleeping, one small fist pressed against his cheek. She checked on Lily, who was sprawled across her bed with her stuffed elephant tucked under one arm, dreaming whatever 5-year-olds dream about. She went back to her drafting table. The country club plans were spread across the surface, measurements and colors and possibilities. Clara picked up her pencil. She had learned something over the past year, something that no design school teaches and no blueprint contains. You cannot build your life on someone else's promises. Promises shift. Promises erode. Promises are handed to you by charming men in nice suits who have already filed the paperwork to take them back. But you can build on your own strength, on your own talent, on the love of the people who show up at your door with cupcakes when the world is ending and refuse to leave until you are breathing again. Clara bent over her drafting table and drew the first line of her new design. Her hand was steady. Her vision was clear. Whatever Grant and Ruth were planning, whatever judges they thought they owned, whatever new strategy they were constructing in their endless campaign to take what was not theirs, Clara would be ready. Because Clara Weston did not break. She redesigned. And this time, she was building something that would last. Not a house, not a marriage, not a firm built on someone else's money and someone else's lies. A life, her life, built on her own foundation, with her own hands, bearing only her own name. And that structure, the one you build after everything else has fallen, the one you construct from the ruins of someone else's betrayal, that is the one that stands forever. This content was carefully researched, developed, and manually edited by our team to deliver meaningful stories with real-life lessons. Thank you for being part of this community.